Right, let's talk also about something closer to home. This is really interesting, isn't it? We mentioned it before a little bit when we were talking about Jofra and Mark Wood and the NOCs at the IPL, but let's just explain to you how this story has moved on since then. Basically, the ECB have changed their approach to awarding NOCs, no objection certificates, which is what allows players or English-based players to play in franchise tournaments around the world. You need an NOC from the ECB to play. Now, the ECB have changed their policy. They used to hand these out quite easily. Now they're saying that anything that clashes with the English summer or any of the English tournaments, and for example, the T20 Blast runs from May to September. So anything that clashes with that tournament, and there are a few during May and September, you can't play if you are a multi-format cricketer in England. So basically, you're on a contract which covers white ball cricket and red ball cricket. That includes, by the way, people like Luke Wood and Saqib Mahmood, who are on essentially white ball contracts, but they have a pay-as-you-play with red ball. So they might play 2 red ball games in a year if they're needed or if it's right for them. Well, they won't be allowed to play, for example, in something like the PSL, the Pakistan Super League, because the IPL, you're allowed to play in that if you're an English player, if you get picked up, but the PSL, you're not. So if you're not one of the top echelon players of the IPL that gets picked up in the IPL, you then can't go and play in the PSL, which seems unfair, really. It seems like it affects not the top rung of players, but the rung below that. So about 50 players we're hearing have got together and they've said this is unfair, this is restraint of trade, and they've threatened to boycott the 100, which would be a massive deal for the ECB as they're selling off the franchises. It would be huge. I understand what the ECB are doing, Azeem, here. They're trying to protect their tournaments, which is absolutely fair enough. You need to keep domestic cricket strong here. But do these players who are threatening a boycott, who are upset about this, do they have a point?
Where do we start? The thing is, right, firstly, they need whoever's giving them this advice to have this put out there to try and, show that they're going to boycott. Go on then. Go boycott. They ain't going to boycott. You can't. They ain't going to do it because you're going to have people who are going to break away, people who are going to have different agendas, etc. The thing is, Matt, these players and their agents have had it very, very cushy for the last few years without any pushback. Last summer, Luke Wood was playing in the Azeem T10, if I'm not wrong, while Lancashire was playing, right? Now, what these players are looking for, look, if you want to go freelance, go fully freelance, right? But they want the security of a red ball contract, security of a full contract from the counties, and the freedom of being a freelancer. And you know what? Absolutely, ECB, for me, finally has done where they are starting to go. Look, what have BCCI done? Right? They put some restrictions on their players because they're paying them. Here you've got, Alex Stewart spoke about, you get to use the indoor centres, the physios, everything, and then you pick up a contract in some, in playing time, and you're allowed, you want to go. And they're not going to boycott. It's just, I think it's a shocking attempt by whoever the players are. I've got a good idea, but I wouldn't want to name them at this stage. And their advisors and the, PCA. I've had dealings with the PCA, Matt. They couldn't organize anything. They're an organization without a CEO. I just think it's ill-judged. Look, there needs to be better clarity, absolutely, because there's people in all sorts of different situations. But I have absolutely no problem with ECB saying if you have a full contract, then you need to commit to fulfilling it. You cannot, have a full contract and then go, oh, you know what? I've just been picked up. I'll go and spend 2 months in Pakistan. By the way, there's something happening in Zimbabwe. I'll add that on top as well without losing anything. It's just, you can't have your cake and eat it.
But hang on, how is it fair for a player, say someone like Saqib Mahmood, for example, right, who doesn't get an IPL gig, who gets a good opportunity in the PSL, but because the T20 Blast, and by the way, he could play in the PSL and hardly miss any Blast games because it's right at the beginning of the Blast season. Hardly any games would clash, but then he can play the rest of the season. He can play also in the quarterfinals and in the final in September. But because he's got a contract where he has chosen to say, right, I am available for some Red Bull games if you need me, but he doesn't play that many these days. Because he's got that kind of a contract, he can't play in the PSL and miss a couple of Blast games at the start of the season. How is that fair? And also, had he got an IPL deal, he'd be able to play in that. So that's not fair either.
Well, look, the whole IPL and every other tournament thing, whether you like it or don't like it, that's just the reality of the world and, the reality of the land. I don't agree with it, but that's just what it is, right? And no one's going to come up against that. In terms of the other thing, I can see, and that's where I mean the clarity as to, because people are in different situations. But also, what he does have is access to the indoor center, access to the coaches, access to physio, access to medical staff, right? Now, if you want to be a freelancer, then be a freelancer and give that up, because you can't have it all. The players cannot have it all. And over the last few years, look, what's actually happened here, Matt, is, the players have took the piss. They've taken it too far. They've pushed the counties. They've taken the actual, and it's the counties have gone, hold on a minute, and then counties have not had enough in them, so they've tried to push the ECB, and someone somewhere has got to clamp it down, because the reality is, as I said with the multi-year contracts, no matter what you do, if they get a better contract, they'll go, right? And I am of the firm belief that actually we should be encouraging them to go freelance, right? Because what will happen through that is when they go freelance, soon they will realize that actually the grass is not green, and the security of a county contract. Look, you're a freelancer, so am I. There's a lot of challenges of being a freelancer. Making life decisions, mortgages, all not knowing, something external, can dry up work, all of that stuff. And that they're the challenges. But then also it brings you freedom. So, that's the question in the real world. That's something you're always battling with. Here, they want it. They want both. They want all of it. You can't have all of it. Go and arrange the little things that as professional sports players take for granted. And, once you finish, you get it's the things that are done for you and things that are available. When they're not, and you have to do them yourselves, that's when you realize how much that helps. The players can't have it all. They want to go freelance, pay for everything, yourself. And, I'm sure no one will stop you. Pick the best options for you. But what will happen through that, Matt, in my view, is what you'll see is 2 or 3, 4, 5 of them will do it, those that it works for, but actually 1 or 2 bad tournaments, and all of a sudden, that mindset is a big shift, a freelancer to a full-time job. They want, as I said, the security of a full-time job and the freedom of a freelancer. That just, it's not right. And also, added on top, a few weeks ago or so, they want to play less cricket as well. Actually, they want the county schedule. They want less county championship cricket. But then I guarantee you, again, what will happen, say, for example, the county championship fixtures get less, right? And there's another T10 somewhere else. They go and play that. They've done this, right? They've disrespected it. They've taken the piss, and it's got to a point someone stepped down. Now, their caveat being whether the ECB stays strong or not is anyone's guess. But I if I was them, I'd say to them, go on, let's see you boycott. They ain't gonna boycott.
But then what would the ECB do, right? If someone like Saqib Mahmood, who's still a very promising all-format player, someone who could play Test cricket again, he could just turn around and say, okay, well, I'm now not going to have a red ball contract. I'll just have a white ball contract for Lancashire. And that means that he can play in these franchise tournaments. So is it not almost cutting your nose off to spite your face as far as the ECB are concerned? Because some of your promising players might suddenly abandon their red ball contracts and just focus solely on white ball cricket, and your pool is getting smaller.
Well, no, not really, because he doesn't want to play Test cricket. Because if he wanted to play Test
You know,
cricket, if he wanted to play Test cricket, he wouldn't have a white ball only contract with a pay as you play in red ball. That contract has not come from Lancashire, right? That's contracts come from the player, and this is my point about how much are you gonna keep trying to keep these players, because the more money they get offered, and I don't look, they are well within their right and they need to do what the best is for them and their families. But you can't have it all. And you can't tell me that he's gone and signed a white ball contract, and he wants to play Test cricket. That's just not true. Look, I've been in them dressing rooms, when these tournaments, when you hear Test cricket's the pinnacle, etc., etc., that's still what I'm striving towards. And, the conversation with their agents and is completely different. He doesn't want to play. That's fine. Let him go and be a freelancer. But if he wants to pick where he's just on a white ball contract, right, and he wants to play, have the freedom to be able to play wherever he wants, whenever he wants, he's got to have everything else that the freelancer does, where he's got to, if he uses an indoor center, he's got to pay for it. When he uses the coaches, he's got to pay for it. He's got to have his own medical insurance, etc., etc., all that stuff. And what you'll see very quickly is actually everyone will get in line and go, hold on a minute, right? We've gone too far. And when I read that piece, I was just like literally, it's. I mean, the attempt while there's 100 sale important for the game going on, right? The attempt of the sort of threat is, I think it's as absurd as the threat, actually.